Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, just wanted to give you guys a brief overview and my thoughts on the patch 3.05 patch notes. These patch notes were launched on July 21st, 2015, and with them, bring a couple of new features into the game, including the Savage difficulty of Alexander, which I probably don't have a lot of time before the servers go live, so let me get these patch notes out of the way so I can go wait on that server button to go live. Anyway, so patch 3.05 on top of that has a few other features and adjustments we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks now, since the latest live letter. Real quick, anything I talk about regarding Disciples of Hand and Land, there is a disclaimer here. Adjustments for Disciples of the Hand and Land, including the introduction of Red Gatherer scripts and Red Crafter scripts, will be implemented during the maintenance on Thursday, July 23rd, 2015. So even though it says it in the patch notes here, it got patched into the game, it's going to be enabled, I guess, the next couple of days, or they need another maintenance to fully implement it or something like that, I'm not sure. So real quick, new side story missions, that would be the side story mission to unlock Alexander Gordius Savage. Went over that the other day. If I skip over a few things, it's because in the past couple of days I've probably done a video about it, so apologies. Just remember to check the description of the video if you want to read the patch 3.05 patch notes yourself. Now the first thing, adjustments for fates in Heavensward zones. So Northern Thanalan has become a pretty popular place in the expansion for leveling, unfortunately so much better than the expansion zones. So they made some changes. Level sync of fates in the area surrounding Ishgard have been increased from 3 levels higher than the recommended level to 4 levels higher. So if it's a level 51 fate, you can sync down to it and you'll be 55. That makes it so you're able to do them while you're pretty vastly over leveled for them, which will make them significantly easier. They buffed the experience rewarded from them by an extra 50%. Almost makes you wonder why the armory bonus even has 100% now, because it's basically the same bonus with that. And that should bring them to a pretty substantial level over the other ones. With only the 50% armory bonus, they were higher, they just weren't worthwhile higher. Now they should be a little bit more worth it, especially with this next change. The difficulty of fates based on previous number of participants has been adjusted. In the event a significant amount of time is required to complete a fate, or players fail to complete it, the strength of enemies will be reduced when the fate next appears. This should make it a little bit more consistent using fates as a means to level the second time through. And I can think of a few places that are already okay to do a couple of fates as you're passing by. Right outside Camp Falcon's Nest has maybe 4 or 5 fate spawns that are really quick to do, and this will probably make them even quicker to do. On top of that, the hinterlands is a pretty condensed area. That's probably going to be a good place for leveling as well. Sea of Clouds might still be rough. Churning Mists is a little bit okay during certain times or certain places. So with these changes, it should be okay, or at least a little bit more understandable. But I don't know, I still see Northern Thanalan being maybe still a pretty good place at some point. Treasure hunts, they added the new tombstones, esoterics to the wyvern skin and dragon skin maps, and also adjusted the drop rate of Thanarian silk. Hopefully, I wonder if that means it's going to go from, like, if it's lower drop rate, higher drop rate, probably a higher drop rate. Adjusted is the word they used. New crafting materials have been added to the rewards for trade craft temple leaves. Still don't know if you're going to convince me to do those instead of just doing all the leaves separately to level them, you know? Grand Companies, you can now trade in for grade 6 dark matter times 5, 1,725 seal. I know we all have a lot of seal saved up from Northern Thanalan, so now you can at least repair your level 60 gear with it with this grade 6 dark matter. Number of items requested for alchemist supply missions has been adjusted. New NPCs have been added to certain areas in the expansion. So Alexander Gordius Savage, I went over this in its entirety in a video last week, so I'm not just real quick basics. It's just like Coil in terms of progression. It's just like Coil in terms of drops. It also has tokens for each floor, which we'll go over in a second here, which if you don't get your drop after a certain number of weeks, you'll be able to use that in order to buy some loot. It doesn't have a minimum item level, requires 8 people to queue in, also requires that you first finish the Ultimate Ballad, which is Ultima Hard Mode, as well as Alexander Gordius Normal, before talking to the Wandering Minstrel in Mordona. Also, you need to enter via red bricks in the Dravanian hinterlands, and on top of that, the item level it drops is item level 210. It does also drop, and I can confirm this based on this list of items right here, it does drop upgrade items for esoterics gear. So you have the Illuminati Gob Coat, Gob Twine, and Gob Dip. The Gob Dip is equivalent to an encrypted tombstone. Gob Twine is equivalent to a carbon twine, and Gob Coat is equivalent to a carbon coat. So very similar in terms to upgrading the Poetics gear, so it should seem pretty familiar. Okay, so also, this is the token system, the item exchange. Now, the items themselves do drop. Like, it's not like Alexander Normal where it's like a pedal or a chain. The item themselves do drop. It's just a matter that you also have these tokens in case you do it week after week after week and never see your loot. For example, weapons 8 manifesto page 4s. Now you're probably wondering what's the difference between page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pretty simple. Page 1 only drops on the first floor, page 2 drops on the second floor, page 3 drops on the third floor, and page 4 drops on the fourth floor. So keep that in mind. It looks like the only pieces you can really get from floor 1 every week is accessories, and it still takes 4 floor 1 clears in order to get any accessory that you want. I'm sure they're hoping your item will actually drop somewhere along the way, but at least it means that after a while, if you seek an item, you are going to be able to get it, which is nice. Paladins, of course, being able to get their weapon once they can clear a floor for several weeks in advance, but we'll see what they end up doing. They also made some adjustments to the job actions. Now, Dragoons, I know people are like, why are Dragoons on this list? They're making it so that if you absolutely can't get to the rear or flank for your random combo at the end of your Blood of the Dragon rotation, that the damage fall off isn't as bad. So it's still 290 potency when attacking from the correct sides. However, instead of it being a 190 potency fall off, it's just a 90 potency fall off if for any reason you can't get to the correct side. Ravana is a good example off the top of my head of sometimes you get the one that's for the rear, and you know, Ravana says you can only attack me from the front or the flank. So good example, nice buff for any boss that actually ends up doing that, but still be doing your best to get to the correct side. That's no excuse to not try to make use of the 290 potency. Now, Black Mage changes were interesting. So they buffed the Thundercloud proc rate from 5% to 10%. Okay. They buffed Thunder, Thunder 2, and Thunder 3. They buffed their damage over time potency, and therefore they had to buff their potency when triggering Thundercloud. Thunder 3 also had its base potency jumped up by 10, but now its total Thundercloud potency is 390. My question is, and I'm seriously asking this because I don't know, Black Mages, you need to tell me because I know how strict the Enochian rotation is. Does this make you want to use Thunder in Enochian any more than you did before? Because as the way I'm reading this, you're still at risk of losing Enochian if you try to include Thunder in your rotation. I wonder if the jump to 10% means that they kind of expect you to at least want to use Thundercloud procs over Fire 4, but maybe still, I don't know. You guys got to tell me how this actually affects your rotation, because I'm just guessing at this point. And they also changed Enochian so that if you reuse Enochian while still under its effect, its recast is 30. It's resets the timer to 30 seconds instead of 25. I think it does it now. So that's a nice little change. And the Astrologian buffs, huge fan of them. I still don't think it conquers the core problems, but they actually did conquer one of them. Let me go over this. Lightspeed now reduces the MP cost of spells by 25% also. It also now only reduces potency of attack spells, which means your healing spells have their full potency while under Lightspeed. That is a good change. To compensate for the added 2 effects, its duration was dropped to only 10 seconds. We'll see if that ends up kind of leveling it out so that it's not super overpowered, but it seems like it is a meaningful cooldown now. One of the biggest problems Astrologians had is that if you ever got behind in healing, you were done. You had no meaningful tools to catch up outside of Essential Dignity. And there were some changes posted on Reddit, or some proposed changes that I was a huge fan of. Like, instead of changing Enhanced Benefic to make it so you got the Instacast Benefic too, to make it like lower the cooldown time on Essential Dignity, that would have been amazing. But Lightspeed changes are good. That should make it a more meaningful cooldown, a more meaningful healing cooldown. Now the Ewer and the Spire, those 2 cards saw a pretty substantial change. The Ewer is now Refresh, and the Spire is now Goad. That's pretty big. That makes them a massive, massive force for long, drawn-out fights. To have those abilities do like that, that's really big for progression. It still doesn't matter for things like Ravana and Bismarck and Alexander Normal, where running out of resources is pretty uncommon unless you die. But still, I'm a bigger fan of this. It was nice that they tried to deal with the whole cost reduction, but this should make things, I'm more interested in these new forms. They also changed Royal Road. They switched the Arrow and Spear and the Ewer and Spire effects. So the Arrow and Spear, when you Royal Road those, now that doubles the duration of the next card drawn. It's no longer the AoE effect. And the Ewer and the Spire now get the AoE effect that Arrow and Spear had before. I think that's because they probably want to incentivize you not using these every single time. It's definitely because of the changes to the Ewer and the Spire. Interested to see how that ends up affecting Astrologians. Spread can now be used outside of combat, and Shuffle now only has a 1-minute recast time, so that's a buff overall. Collective Unconsciousness, potency of regen effect from Diurnal Sect has been increased from 150 to 200. Like, I still don't think anyone cares about that spell. Still doesn't fix the issue that Nocturnal Sect is underutilized and not so great. Still doesn't affect that Collective Unconsciousness still has so many weaknesses that people won't use it. It probably needed a radius boost. It probably needed the ability to place it around yourself, but the ability to move out of it afterwards. Maybe with the buff to 200, Astrologians will tell me it's in a better place, and I'm still waiting for some sort of change to Celestial Opposition, which they said they were thinking about, but it seems didn't get through here. New elite marks were added. Fantastic. Elegant Tomestones of Esoterics. Players can now only obtain 450 Elegant Tomestones of Esoterics per week, up to a maximum of 2,000. Very similar to Poetics. And Tomestones of Esoterics can only be obtained after reaching level 60 with at least one class or job. And then it tells you right here where to exchange them for gear and where to exchange enhanced gear received in exchange for Elegant Tomestones of Esoterics. Okay. And then here are the new values. You get 35 Esoterics from Roulette. No Esoterics from High Level. Interesting. 5 Esoterics from the Leveling Roulette. They changed the name of the Duty Roulette Low Level. It's now Duty Roulette Leveling, which makes a lot more sense, actually. I'm a fan of that name change. 10 Esoterics from the Trial Roulette, 20 Esoterics from the Frontlines Roulette. I'm probably going to do the Frontlines Roulette with Seal Rock Seas coming out. Level 60 Dungeon Trials raids unlocked after completing will now yield Elegant Tomestones of Esoterics. Okay. Elegant Number of Law for first time completion has been adjusted. PvP rank required for item level 100 and 110 gear has been removed. So if you were looking for that gear for Glamour, it's now much easier to get. But however, there's now item level 180 PvP gear, and the new cap rank is 50. Seal Rock Seas was added. Now, I went over Seal Rock Seas the other day, so again, not going to go into detail about everything. In short, you have to capture points and receive data in order to get them. The points are random, where they spawn is random, and the quality of the node that spawns in that location is also random. So every match would feel somewhat dynamic, because if a more powerful node spawns in a different location than the last time you played, your team has to very quickly be able to react. Can't use flying mounts, can use ground mounts. Yes, it still has Grand Company restrictions, but it also has random starting points. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention here. It does have the adrenaline bar. This concerns me, because this is what made Slaughter Slaughter is a bunch of black mages running up, sleeping you, and hitting you with like 8 Cometeors. So I don't know if it's as strong. It probably is, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fan of this being brought into Seas or not. It's probably just to make the matches faster, but I don't know. It kind of kills it for me a little bit, unless you're playing black mage with like a pre-made or something like that. Gives PvP XP, Wolf Marks, Elegant Tomestones of Law, and Elegant Tomestones of Esoterics, plus the Roulette. It should be a pretty decent means of getting Esoterics. New recipes have been added, new items. Now, the Red Gatherer scripts and Red Crafter scripts, these are just like the Tomestones of Esoterics. They have a cap of 450 per week, and they can be used to exchange for high-tier crafting and gathering items. So, interested to see what colors they use for scripts after that. And also, they added the new system for the Disciples of Land, Favors. I actually forgot that this wasn't in the Heavensward patch. Like, they've been talking about it for a while now. It's a new endgame version of Gathering. Using Favor confers a status that reveals concealed gathering points from which rare items may be harvested. I'm assuming these will be used for the new recipes. Interested to see how difficult favors end up being, or how much it ends up changing the way that gatherers approach their role. Fishing has seen some adjustments. I don't really understand these things, so I'm not going to try and talk about them. They also made it so you can now get the upgrade materials for your law gear via Tomestones of Law. So it's a lot of law to do the upgrades. So if you do the hunt now, you're even more double dipping, because if you don't need law for the actual, items themselves, you can now spend them on the upgrade items. It's pretty expensive though. I'd still recommend at least trying to participate in the hunt with values like 900 Tomestones of Law. Ingredients change. Range of items that may be requested through retainer ventures have been increased. Certain monsters will now drop new items. A new mount has been added. I'm assuming this has to do with Alexander Gordius Savage, because that's from A2. That's from the second floor of Alexander. And then we have new achievements. Collect this that many times, get to the new PvP ranks. Guide any of the 3 Grand Companies to battle. Maybe, who knows? Maybe this will come from PvP. Who knows? Maybe that'll come from beneath enemy rocks. Who knows? I could probably check. Anyway, due to the inconsistencies in the Mac and Korean versions of the game, the following quests cannot be accepted. Wow. Wow. And then they fixed a bunch of bugs here, and then we have the items. So here's where you can see the item level of everything. You can see that Antiquated Hauteclair, that is an Esoterics weapon. The upgraded version is just called the Hauteclair. Now, this was interesting. Esoterics weapons are the same item level as Alexander Floor 4 weapons. That is interesting. But it seems that just based on, if we scroll back up, the gob dip, if we go all the way back up to the drops right here, it looks like that's actually okay, because you can only get this item from beating floor 4. You look, page 4, floor 4. So it's basically just an item choice that you could still only get for beating the hardest content in the game. So I guess it's understandable that they're the same item level then, as opposed to having a differential in item level and having it drop a floor before. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay that they decided to do that way. But as you can see, item level 210 is the drop for Alexander Savage. Esoterics are 200, but can be upgraded to 210. And the new PvP stuff is I-180. The new crafted gear is I-170, in case you're wondering. You can see anything here that's I-170. That is something that's from the new crafting gear. Some of it probably from red scripts as well. Lots of items being added. Holy moly. That's a lot of items. That's a lot of items. The ones with super long descriptions are PvP items, by the way. Oh, man. What was that? I saw an I-160. Field Commander Slops. Okay. Feet, necklace, earrings, bracelets, ring, stone. These are new materials that you'll be able to get. Regents, miscellaneous, other. Gobwalker gear. An oddly shaped metal cog that has been removed from an Illuminati-built Gobwalker. Using it should restore the machine's controls. I'm assuming that's the mount item. And then we have the new recipes right here. I'm not going to go through all of this. Just quickly scroll down, see if there's anything else. And we are good to go. So thank you for watching my overview and thoughts. Thoughts are, I'm okay. I'm actually a pretty big fan of some of the changes that came in. I really want to know about those Black Mage changes the most. Like, I need a Black Mage to tell me. I'm going to ask the one in my static after we're done here. So thank you for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on the changes or the additions in patch 3.05 in the comment section of the video below. I will see you guys later, because right now it's time to get into Savage. So I'll see you guys later, and until next time, take care.